Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From Radio Beacon to Radio Beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randy Rhoads Show.
Turn up your mind.
David Koch was born in Wichita, Kansas in 1940. He got his love of the arts from his mother, Mary. He got his politics from his father, Fred Koch, a self-made millionaire who founded what would become Koch Industries. Deeply conservative, Fred Koch helped create the John Birch Society, a radical right-wing organization. You were born rich.
I was born well off, not rich.
Do you think, had you been born poor, you would be the same view?
I certainly think so. I have a value system that my father instilled in me, and I've been following his beliefs and his value system all my life.
There were 4 brothers, Frederick, Charles, and fraternal twins David and Bill. As children, David and Bill were rivals, reportedly encouraged by their father to work out their conflicts through boxing. David went to Deerfield, an elite prep school, then MIT, where he studied engineering and played basketball, very successfully. After Fred Koch died, Charles became CEO and David eventually became executive vice president. Koch Industries grew steadily, but the rivalries of childhood played out in adulthood. First, Bill and Frederick tried to oust Charles from his CEO job. Then, Charles and David bought out Bill and Frederick for $1.1 billion. Then Bill and Frederick sued them. Koch versus Koch Industries went on for 15 years. At the height of the conflict, their mother Mary disinherited any brother who sued any other brother. That led to another lawsuit. And although the lawsuits were eventually settled, there were many years when David and Bill scarcely spoke. Were you and Bill close growing up?
We had our differences, but as time went on, we grew closer and closer. And not long ago, my brother Bill asked his longtime girlfriend to marry him. He called me up crying. He said, "Would you be the best man in my wedding?" I started crying.
Oh, wasn't that beautiful?
I said, "Billy, this is a great honor. I never thought you'd want me to take this role, and I will do my darndest to be the best man for you that I can be."
Fatality.
You have been suffering.
That was cold. Was it cold? That was cold. All right, so one of the Koch brothers died. I think it was the David. I don't know. So who inherits all the politicians now that he's greased? Who? Who inherits Dick Army or Dick's Army? Who inherits that? I'm going to guess the one that didn't die. I'm going to guess that Charles inherits all the ones that David bought. Is what I'm going to guess. I mean, you think your family has problems. Can you imagine? I mean, everybody thinks that, oh, if only I was a billionaire. Oh, if only I was rich. Oh, if only I would solve all my... No, they hated each other. The mother had to get involved with lawsuits, and then they sue her, too. I mean, you got to celebrate where you can, people. You got to celebrate where you can. But, yeah, so I'm watching the stock market crash is what I'm watching right now. And that was not what I thought we'd be talking about today at all, okay? But the stock market is down 532 points at this moment because Donald Trump was tweeting this morning. Can you believe this crap? Can you? Look at that. 533 points now. There's a little ticker on your screen if you're watching. Thank you, Brett. But... this is what happened. Donald Trump, with his stupid little, small, tiny little fingers, I'm guessing he's a thumber. I don't know. He actually, with a few flicks right there, caused the Dow Industrial Average to plunge 200 points this morning in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes. This is the timeline. 10:57 this morning, Donald Trump tweeted, I swear to God, he attacked the Fed chairman, who, they're having their little meeting, their little get-together. The bankers are with the Fed chairman out in Jackson's Hole, Dick's Army, I don't know, someplace in Wyoming. I don't know which one it is. Charles or David, Wyoming. But yeah, no, it's Jackson Hole. They're having a little meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And, Jerome Powell gave a little speech to the central bankers, and he told them that right now he was not in the mood to lower interest rates, but he was monitoring Trump's ridiculous trade war, and that now his job has become even more difficult because you have an unhinged lunatic, he didn't say this, at the helm of our economy, okay? And he's engaged and initiated a trade war with China single-handedly without using any of the tools that he was given in his toolbox, like, TPP, which was, okay, not perfect, but TPP was 12 nations, 12 Asian nations, who would have acted as a bloc for China, okay? It was built in. It was there. It was for him to, absorb and use and deploy. And then, of course, today is the G7, or today he's traveling to the G7, which is the G7 are the 7 largest economies in the world, their leaders in France, getting together to discuss the fact that the globe and the global economy is slowing down. You would think that would be a tool he could use to, if he wanted to slap China around, use the 7 largest economies in the world to, fix whatever they, perceive is wrong with China's trade practices and, create another block, right? And so far you got like 2 really but Donald Trump, I alone can fix it. I am the chosen one. This is what he said. I'm the chosen one. He looked up to the heavens, proclaimed himself king of Israel and the chosen one for China. And so he's doing it all by himself. So this morning he tweeted at 10:57 this morning, almost 11 o'clock this morning, he tweeted that he wasn't sure who our bigger enemy is. Our Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, who said, I'm monitoring this crazy trade war, and there may come a time when I have to lower interest rates, but now's not the time. I need some tools in my toolbox because this man's going to crash the freaking economy for the United States, and that's my major concern here. So give me some wiggle room to lower interest rates if I need to, if this man does what I think he's going to do and put us into a freaking recession, okay? And so Trump tweets, who's our bigger enemy, Jay Powell or the communist dictator, President Xi, who, by the way, announced today retaliatory tariffs against the United States in response to Trump's lunacy. And he will do it in stages. $75 billion worth of American goods he's going to put tariffs on. Those goods will be American energy, oil and gas. Oh, yeah. Soybeans. Hello, farmers. Hello, milkmaids. Yeah. And so Trump starts tweeting. He's not sure if Jerome Powell is an enemy of the United States or if Xi is an enemy of the United States and who's the bigger enemy. And then he went on to, and in 5 minutes, within 5 minutes of that going out, the stock market tanked 200 points. Okay. 2 minutes later, he posts this series of ranting tweets against China in which he said, quote, we don't need China. And frankly, we'd be far better off without them. I hereby order American companies to immediately start looking for an alternative to China, okay? Including bringing your companies home, making your products in the USA. I will be responding to China's tariffs this afternoon. We're still waiting. And then he said that he wants all carriers, FedEx, Amazon, UPS, and the post office to search for and refuse all deliveries of fentanyl from China. And he's ordering them to do that. Now, I don't know if he thinks he can or if he knows he can't. Anyway, the stock market crashed another 220 points.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randy Rhodes Show.
President Trump is going on a Twitter tirade, but the target is not Emmanuel Macron or Angela Merkel or any of his other G7 counterparts. Nope. It's China, which is ramping up the pressure on the White House by issuing this new round of retaliatory tariffs on $75 billion worth of U.S. goods. Everything from cars to seafood to whiskey. Those tariffs go into effect September 1st and December 15th. And that prompted this president to tweet, quote, "Our great American companies are hereby ordered to immediately start looking for an alternative to China, including pulling out of the country." Those tweets plus China's new tariffs equal a pretty brutal day, as you can see on Wall Street, the Dow tumbling triple digits. But Trump didn't stop with China or its president, Xi Jinping, who he compared to Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, the man Trump nominated to lead the agency 2 years ago. But today, President Trump asked whether Jerome Powell or President Xi was the biggest enemy of the U.S. For his part, Chairman Powell told economists today that there is a risk of an economic slowdown, noting that the Fed is ready to take appropriate steps. By the way, the Fed holds its next rate setting meeting in just a couple of weeks.
Oh, for God's sake.
Really?
I am the chosen one.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah. So today, Donald Trump ordered U.S. businesses to stop doing business with China. The good news is he can't make them do that. The bad news is he totally doesn't understand that. He totally doesn't get it. And you know what's really sick? The idea that America is going this alone and that our soybean farmers, I mean, it's just so unbelievable. The tariffs, the retaliatory tariffs that China is going to impose in September, and then again, there'll be another round on December 15th. As Trump said, he was delaying $300 billion worth of tariffs on Chinese imports into this country, but he delayed those tariffs because he didn't want consumers to get hit during the Christmas buying season, but also says you're not paying for these tariffs. And then this week, he said, oh, maybe we'll do a payroll tax to help the economy. Then he said we didn't need a payroll tax because the economy is great. Then he said maybe he would index capital gains for inflation or whatever. Then he said we didn't need to do that. Then he said, yes, we will. Then he said, no, we won't. Then he said, Jay Powell is a bigger enemy than China. Then he said, no, China is the biggest enemy. And I'm ordering all businesses to cease doing business with China. And then he said there'll be some sort of an announcement this afternoon and everybody's waiting for whatever, the chosen.
I am the chosen one.
Well, speak, bring your tablets down from Sinai and tell us, enlighten us with what the burning bush told you, because the economy is literally just... you have manufacturing that for the first time in 10 years is in negative growth. Business investment, first time in 10 years, nobody's investing. Gave them all this money in this tax cut, and they're sitting on it. They're not spending any of it. And I'm just thinking to myself, my God, this is amazing. If Trump had any other job, and a lot of people are writing this, they're writing it and they're explaining it to you, that if Trump had any other job, if he was a surgeon, the hospital would have to pull him off of the floor because they would be facing lawsuits. They would have an insane man walking around in the OR doing crazy things, sacrificing patients on behalf of studies or whatever, or, his belief that he's the chosen one. I mean, there is no other job Trump could have with this kind of erratic behavior other than town idiot. Tell me a job that this man could have. His entire career has been in positions that he could survive his own behavior, like family-owned businesses and President of the United States, right? Because we have to look to the Senate to remove him, and it will never happen. This is so crazy. And I don't know what it's going to take for Republicans to actually, I suppose the one thing Trump could do to make the Republicans distance themselves from him is to lose in 2020. I guess, and then they'll say, oh, we're going to go back to normal, whatever that is. I never understood Pepe, the frog, and their whole love of memes and crap. I don't get it. But one of the guys that was at the social media summit along with the white supremacists and other, right? They just started like a whole meme factory, and they're going to push out the meme, like Pepe, right? Pepe. Now I get it. The Republican Party is going to have to change their meme from the elephant, who we've been cleaning up after as soon as the circus leaves town, to a boiling frog, hence Pepe. It's the only explanation I could think of for why they fell in love with this frog with his eyeballs popping out of his head. This is sheer madness. This is crazy. And the market's not even closed yet. It's still tanking. It's still, I mean, this is just an amazing day where the truth has caught up with Donald Trump, whether he likes it or admits it or understands it or not. And you know what he just tweeted like 5 seconds ago? He tweeted that the reason why the market is tanking is because Seth Moulton has pulled out of the Democratic race for the nominee. That Seth Moulton has ended his campaign. And he did. You know, ex-Marine Seth Moulton. And he just said, you know, there's no path for me, so I'll just be over here. And he actually, told everybody why he was pulling out. Now, you got Hickenlooper pulling out. I mean, a lot of people pulled out this week because the rules of the road for the next debate were elevated from the past two debates. The past two debates, you needed 65,000 independent voters, different voters. Now you need 130,000 different donors, and you need to have 2% in approved polls. And if you look at the approved polls, you'll notice Rasmussen, or however you pronounce that, the Rasmussen, is not one of the approved polls because that's a rigged poll. However, because a lot of them haven't reached the threshold of 2% and a lot of them haven't gotten 130,000 individual donors, they're not eligible for the next debate. And so, they are smart enough and they are decent enough to make room for the people who have met the criteria. Next Wednesday, of course, is the day that we will find out exactly who qualified for the September 12th debate. And we'll know, we'll know. But Trump is... See, and here's the thing that freaks me out, and this is more in league of what I wanted to talk about today. Donald Trump is literally breaking this country. He's literally breaking this country. I mean, people are so physically ill from him. That's just a fact. People who live in abject despair, who put their trust in him, are disillusioned now. Others of them are just plain delusional, but people like the coal miners who are wheeling themselves around in wheelchairs with oxygen tanks, black lung disease, asking for their $500 a week pension that's guaranteed by the federal government. And the federal government, Mitch McConnell, blocks the distribution. I mean, people are just really, really hurt, really hurting. So not only is he killing us physically, okay, and emotionally, he is draining every, but he's breaking our economy. He's breaking it on purpose. At the behest of somebody. He's doing very fascist things like separating family. You just got to wonder.
Clear for takeoff. Randy Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandyRhodes.com. Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
The U.S.-China trade war reaching a new level. Just moments ago, China announcing it will impose $75 billion in new tariffs on U.S. goods. It comes as President Trump is set to depart later today for the G7 summit in France with some major economic questions here at home. Let's get straight to CNN's Allison Cossack with more on those tariffs. And Allison, crucially, how the markets are reacting to them.
Yeah, this latest escalation, Jim, in the trade war is pushing U.S. futures down. We did see them in the green, but we saw them virtually do a U-turn. So it looks like the Dow could open as much as 140 points lower once the opening bell rings in about an hour. What the Chinese said was they have to impose these countermeasures because of the Trump trade war. And what they're going to do is beginning September 1st and December 15th, they're going to impose a 5 to 10 10% tariff on $75 billion of goods that they import from the U.S. Now, if you remember those dates, they pretty much mirror the dates that President Trump has on the tariffs that are imposed on Chinese imports, on those $300 billion of Chinese goods and that 10% tariff. So this is clearly yet another step, another escalation in this tit-for-tat tariff war. And what's interesting is the timing of this. This is happening on a day that kind of stole the show, meaning what's happening in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We've got a meeting of central bankers, of the Fed at this big conference where Wall Street is keeping its eyes on because it wants to kind of get an idea about whether or not Jay Powell, the head of the Fed, is going to go ahead and cut rates again at its next meeting in September. And this comes, of course, on the backdrop, Jim, of the economy showing cracks. We did learn yesterday that the manufacturing sector contracted for the first time in a decade.
I know nothing.
I know. He knows nothing. The man, oh, look at that. It hit 600 during the break, minus 600 the stock market did. Oh, this is just unbelievable because he's a terrible, terrible negotiator, okay? The man does nothing except scream and threaten people. He doesn't build coalitions. He doesn't, there's power in numbers. The fact that he is, pretty much everyone in the G7, all the 7 largest economies in the world are just, they're dreading this G7 meeting because Donald Trump is going. They don't even think that, every year they put out a symbolic communique and, and what this G7 is the 7 largest economies getting together to discuss how they could help each other in, obviously, a slowing global economy. And that would make nothing but sense for Donald Trump to listen, for Donald Trump to hear ideas, for Donald Trump to build a coalition of numbers, the 7 largest economies who are our allies, basically, in blocking, whatever bad behavior it is that you would like to, decrease or remove from the global trading system with regard to, communist countries like Russia and China. No. But Trump stood there this week and he said, I think Russia ought to be included in the G8. Obama outsmarted them. No, the reason why Russia is not in the G8 isn't because Obama said he didn't want Russia in the G8. The reason why Russia isn't in the G8 is because the G7 said, and remember they're Europeans for the most part, said that they're in Europe and Vlad is invading Europe. Vlad is invading Ukraine and annexing Crimea and occupying eastern Ukraine. These, Montenegro was scared. So, this is Donald Trump, literally preferring Russians and the Chinese over his own Fed chairman and breaking our economy and trying to sell people the idea that he alone can fix the global economy all by himself. That's just ridiculous. That is stupid. He does have various tools like this G7 summit where he could be talking to the 7 other large economies and figuring out what to do. But, Donald Trump is treating countries as if they're companies. And they're not. There's only, there's no limit to how many companies he could stiff, right? You don't have to have goodwill towards companies if you don't ever want to do repeat business with them. You're just going to move on to the next sucker. That's his business model. Stiff this one, get sued, settle for less in a court, pay them a lesser price for whatever they provided you. That's Donald Trump. And you move on to some other sucker. Well, you can't do that with countries because there's a limited number of countries. You see what I mean here? So he has to have goodwill and face-saving outs for the major ones, and he won't do it. And I swear to God, he's not this smart, right? So somebody has to be putting him up to breaking the U.S. economy. Somebody has to be saying, divide each and every American on the most granular stuff, whether it's sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, skin color, economics, rich against poor, middle class against poor, just divide, because a house divided cannot stand. Just divide, and then crash the economy. I mean, Russia has been thinking of ways to do this to us for 70 years. For 70 years. And Donald Trump is doing it. He's literally doing it. And he needs somebody to blame. That's Donald Trump's whole thing. He needs a straw man. He needs a foil. He needs somebody he can point to and blame. So this morning he started blaming Powell, saying Powell was the bigger enemy of the United States, like the media is the enemy of the United States, right? Everybody's an enemy of the United States. Immigrants are enemies of the United States. Black people they're suspect all the time, just suspect. And of course, Mexicans, well, they only like the United States because of their ability to sell drugs here. It's very sick. Meanwhile, the Chinese are pumping fentanyl into, you can order it on the internet. Now, has he done anything on opioids? No, nothing. And he won't. The VA, he just instructed the ambassador to the UK, Woody Johnson's company, Johnson & Johnson, to sell ketamine to the VA. The VA board doesn't want the ketamine. They say it's dangerous for suicidal vets to take. They can't even leave the office, the doctor's office, if ketamine is administered because it causes you to hallucinate. And anybody who's ever been to a rave or a kale, they know. And it costs like, what, $30 a gram when you buy it? But they're going to charge $295 to the VA, prescribing 2 doses a day for a grand prize of $765 a day, billable, for Woody Johnson's company, our ambassador to the UK. I mean, this is just such swampy stuff, okay? Trump doesn't care about any of this. He's like a Manchurian candidate, and I have no idea what's in it for him. I really don't. I have no idea, and nor do I care. I just know that he doesn't give a damn about us. He doesn't care about his country, all that, he doesn't care about evangelicals. I mean, the man, he doesn't understand religion of any sort. He doesn't, we're not even people to him. We're objects. Everything's transactional to him. Everything is a deal. And he's pissing off the limited number of countries that could help us keep China in its lane. Why? That's the question. Why?
Clear for takeoff. Randy Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandyRhodes.com. This is the Randy Rhodes Show. To speak with Randy, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
We need someone with judgment and the temperament to keep this country safe. I don't know anyone who would be comfortable with someone who behaves this way having his finger on the button. I mean, we're liable to wake up one morning and Donald, if he were president, would have nuked Denmark. Oh! That's not the temperament of a leader to keep this country safe.
Nuking Denmark. Okay, let's move on. Ted Cruz again, this time on how Donald Trump attacks people.
And, Donald can't defend his own records. Whenever you point out what he's actually said, he just screams liar, he insults you, he attacks you, he makes it personal, and he gets very rattled. He doesn't like anyone pointing to his actual substantive records, but I think that's ultimately a sign of weakness.
There's lots of examples of Ted Cruz being right about this, about Donald Trump. Broke one I'll point out yesterday in his press conference before he flew to Kentucky. Someone asked him, one of the reporters asked him whether the whole dual loyalty thing, questioning Jews who vote for Democrats, whether that in and of itself was anti-Semitic. He said, it's only anti-Semitic in your head. Okay. All right. Moving on, Jeb Bush on what Donald Trump's presidency would look like.
This is classic.
But he's a chaos candidate.
Right.
And he'd be a chaos president. He would not be the commander-in-chief we need to keep our country safe.
I mean, look at this week alone.
Really?
Jeb Bush was right. Now, people may have wanted some more chaos than they thought they were getting from the status quo. Did they want this much? Then, remember, a lot of Trump's former rivals are actually now his buddies, and they are in the administration. One of them is Rick Perry. Here's what Rick Perry said about Donald Trump back during the campaign.
He offers a barking carnival act that can best be described as Trumpism. Oh! A toxic mix of demagoguery and mean-spiritedness and nonsense that will lead the Republican Party to perdition if pursued.
I don't want to rip families apart. I don't want to be sending parents away from children. I don't want to see the deportation force that Donald has talked about in action in our country.
Oh! I guess they were right. Put it in a time capsule. It's what James Fallows used to do. He would just jot it all down, and keep track of this crazy man who was running for president. Oh, my God, look at the stock market. It's 618 points. 621. 22. 23. Oh, 22. Okay. Oh, my God. You got to wonder. You got to wonder. Who in the world is telling him to do this? Who in the world is telling him to appear on the White House lawn and to threaten Denmark, to literally, this is what the week was, okay? The week was, do we want to do a payroll tax? Yes, we do. No, we don't. Yes, we do. Maybe we'll do capital gains. No, yes, no, no. Jay Powell's the enemy. No, China is the enemy. Oh, we're going to retaliate again, but not till after Christmas. Oh, and Denmark sucks. A NATO ally. A very important intelligence sharing, Arctic protecting, first responder to anything that would fly over the Arctic into our... I mean, it's just, this was an amazing week. Plus, putting a target on the back of the last group not to be so molested by Donald Trump, Jews, right? Yes, he's an anti-Semite. Of course he's an anti-Semite. He's always been an anti-Semite. He tweeted out Hillary Clinton with the Star of David and cash and retweets white supremacy websites who obviously clearly hate Jews, said that he didn't want black men counting his money. Oh, hell no. Here's a twofer. I don't want black men counting my money. I want short Jewish men with yarmulkes. That's actually a triple play. That's a triple play. He insults blacks, the size of Jewish men, and stereotypes everybody. It's a triple play. I mean, the man is horrendous, and that's why he was picked by adversaries to be our president. And that's kind of really what I wanted to talk about. You know, last night, I don't know if you saw this or not. I don't know if you watch any news. I don't know how you could have missed it, because at first I thought, you know, this man that you probably never heard of, who was the CEO of Overstock.com, okay? A man named Patrick Byrne. Now, his father was like the CEO of a couple of Geico and Fireman's Insurance, I think. I don't know. Anyway, he was born rich. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And then he decided, to become a .com entrepreneur. And, remember Y2K and all, the world was going to end and all. Well, he in 2000 saw an opportunity when all these .coms did go bust, and he decided that he would buy up a bunch of overstocks, right? Things like couches and lamps and housewares that other companies were trying to sell online, and he would, consolidate all their business into his business and started this thing called Overstock.com. Now, I'm sure everybody's bought something. A rug or a lamp or, a coffee table or something. Now, of course, his main competitor is Wayfair, right? Because they have cute songs. Are you singing it right now in your head? Good. Okay. You got just what I need? Yeah. So, and they were going to merge, whatever. All of a sudden, Patrick Byrne, the CEO of Overstock, resigns from Overstock and starts going on all these news programs last night. I mean, like, everybody's news program. First, he starts with Fox Business. Then he moves over to Martha McCallum's show on Fox, main channel. Then he segues over onto CNN and does an appearance with Chris Cuomo. I mean, the thing was off the freaking hook. Now, when you think of why, there's only two reasons to do every single show that there is on television. Either because the president has dispatched you to say, we can't let the smoking gun be a mushroom cloud, and sell you on a ridiculous war against an unarmed nation, like they did when they farmed out across all the networks, Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, all these people from the Bush administration, to sell the war in Iraq, for Iraq, who had nothing to do with 9/11. It was the Saudis. It just was. 15 of the 19 hijackers, Saudis. Saudis have now killed, Khashoggi, but, who cares? There's a new block of power in this world. Donald Trump has taken us out of the alliances that have held us safe for 70 years, and has aligned us with the likes of the UAE, the Saudis, Russia, and Israel, and Hungary and Poland. I mean, this is his new bloc, and they're all autocratic, white supremacist, white nationalist-led nations. It's very sick and it's very twisted. But that said, Patrick Byrne was on everyone's show last night telling and I really believe the reason why he was on these shows last night is because he's afraid. He thinks somebody's going to get him. He thinks somebody's going to hurt him. And I think it was like, a proof of life. He was out there saying, my name is Patrick Byrne. This is what I look like. And if anything happens to me, it's because I knew too much. Now, he doesn't seem like he's not like the friend that, I don't know, maybe, I don't know who your friends are, right? I only know who my friends are. We're a boring lot, my friends. I get very excited when Hart comes to town and I could buy a 6th-row ticket, that's, for me, very exciting. Tonight, I'm going to see a Tom Petty cover band. A cover band. And this is my big night out, and I'm very excited. So this is my wheelhouse, okay? This is kind of like my speed. But this guy is a little erratic. He was crying on the TV last night, and he was trying to explain that there was spying going on during the campaign and even before Donald Trump announced. I don't think he was very clear about what he was trying to explain because I think he was very rattled, very nervous. He had just resigned as CEO from Overstock. He said he resigned as CEO of Overstock because he believes that, there's a big, apparently there's a merger going on. His chief rival or something, they want to merge. And he thought it would get in the way or that the shareholders would be spooked by what he was going to say, didn't want to hurt the company. So he announced he was leaving. He was leaving. The stock price went up 8%. I don't know what it is today, but it went up 8% on 730 points, 734. Oh, my God. The stock market. Oh, my God. Oh, 738. So what he was trying to say, I believe, look at that, 742, 730. Oh, my God. I think what he was trying to say last night is that the Russians infiltrated the NRA. The reason why he started crying is he started crying when he was talking about the mass murders in this country and how he feels responsible for them. And I don't think he's very clear about the fact that there was a counterintelligence investigation into Russian interference in our election that had started in 2015. And I think he's a little jumbled on exactly what happened, but I want to play you what he said.
Mary had a little lamb. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randy Rhoads Show.
Turn up your mind.
Mercifully, the stock market has closed, and they were down for the day, 623 points. Down for the day. We haven't seen a day like this in a very, very long time. And this is Trump tweeting us into a complete implosion. People want their money. That's what happened. People buy and sell all the time in the stock market. But when you see numbers like this in the negative, when you see people selling off their stock, they need their cash. They want their cash. They have no faith in anything that's going on in the economy. They don't want to invest. They want their cash. They want it now. I remember in 2007 when I first started warning people that we were headed for a major recession, that the housing market was about to implode. People were yelling at me, "Oh, well, we're not in a recession. It's 2 quarters of negative growth, you moron, you freak, and I hate your bangs." I was like, okay, I get it. We're not in a recession, but it is coming. And I was telling people, get your money in cash. Have cash. Stop playing around in the stock market. If that's what you do, just get your money in cash. Buy treasuries or something like this, right? That's what people are doing today. They're getting their money in cash. They don't have any faith in this president. They don't trust him with the economy. They don't trust him on the global stage. They don't think that he is the chosen one. Nobody does, especially not the Jews. And the Chinese definitely have made their choice. And I told you, all the cards were in Xi's hand. Donald Trump gave him all the cards. He gave them all the cards when he said, screw TPP. TPP was 12 Pacific nations, 12 Asian Pacific nations, who were going to band together with the United States to block China, to keep China in check. He said, I don't want to do that. The G7, the 7 largest economies in the world, every time he goes, remember last year when he went to the G7? I bet you don't. When he went to the G7, they always write a communique, saying what they talked about, what they agreed to do, and how they were going to solve the world's economic woes or, double down on policies that seem to be working, whatever. Donald Trump signed a communique last G7 and took it and ripped it up. He ripped it up. He literally tore it to shreds to make a point that he is not with our allies. He is not with the 7 largest economies in the world, that he's aligned with somebody else, and we don't know who it is. Or do we? This brings me to the story that was attempted to be told last night by Patrick Byrne, okay? Now, in order to set the stage for you, because here's what we found out last night from Patrick Byrne that is 100% true. 1, Patrick Byrne was dating Maria Butina, the Russian spy, who's in jail now for being a Russian spy. Number 2, I believe he's still in love with her. I don't know what she's got going on there, but men just fall for this girl. Use your imagination. 3, he was told by the counterintelligence investigators, who he won't name, but he calls them X, Y, and Z and says it's way at the top of the last administration. He was asked by them after he self-reported. Patrick Byrne was dating Maria Butina. He fell in love with her, but he also got creeped out by what she was asking him to do. And what she was asking him to do was to introduce her to anybody on the Clinton campaign, on the Ted Cruz campaign, on the Marco Rubio campaign, and anybody on the Trump campaign. Now, this is where I don't think Patrick Byrne understands what the Russians were trying to do. He does understand that the Russians were trying to blackmail Hillary Clinton. He says so. He says it many times in all these appearances he did last night. He repeats that over and over again. I don't think he understands that they were shopping for a candidate, somebody very, very friendly to their hopes, dreams, and desires to destroy the United States from within. And so that they were checking out Marco Rubio, they were checking out Ted Cruz, and they settled on Donald Trump. Now, in order to set the stage for how long they've been at this, you have to go back to 2013. Oh, yes, 2013. In 2013, David Keene, the president of the NRA at the time, was introduced in Russia by Maria Butina. So this has been going on a really stinking long time, okay? So here's a little clip of David Keene in Russia with Maria Butina, who's going to speak Russian for about the first 30 seconds of this clip.
Я бы хотела сейчас предоставить слово экс-президенту и действующему члену правления Национальной стрелковой ассоциации США, НРА, Дэвиду Кину, Соединенные Штаты Америки. Пожалуйста, Дэвид.
Maria, thank you very much.
Maria.
It's a great honor for me to be here today, partly because over the course of the last 3 years, I've hosted your Senator Alexander Torshin at the National Rifle Association annual meetings in Washington or Houston or wherever we hold them. We draw about 80,000 people now to these annual meetings. And while your group here is small, our group was once small as well.
Okay. So in 2013, Maria Butina had already done outreach to the National Rifle Association and had gotten its past president to actually get on a plane and go to Russia. And they understood that the NRA was a not-for-profit, that the NRA was completely conservative, and it would be a natural way into the Republican Party. Now, you know that Vladimir Putin has said, we know from Maria Butina's indictment and conviction, that she was a Russian spy and that the NRA was a natural way into conservative politics, okay? Malcolm Nance, even before she was convicted, was telling you about her.
Malcolm, what do you make of Maria Butina? If 2015, if somebody had seen that video, they would have just thought it's some young Russian reporter, some journalist of some sort, asking this candidate a question. Turns out that she was working hard to infiltrate American organizations.
Yeah, well, when she asked that question, there were a lot of, eyes raised when you started to scrub her background and figure out where she came from. The organization that she was working for, Right to Bear Arms, was a Russian organization, supposedly a small equivalent with 2 people staffing it that was the equivalent of the NRA. There is no right to bear arms in Russia.
Right.
You are not allowed to have any of the weapons that you can have in the United States. You can have a shotgun and a deer rifle, and they are strictly regulated. So when you go backwards and see them creating these networks of social and personal relationships, all you can come up with is that it's got to be an intelligence operation. I wasn't sure whether Butina, and I wrote about her extensively in one of my books, whether she was actually a clandestine service officer with the Russian SVR, which is the agency that's under the FSB, or whether she was an intelligence subcontractor sent out to co-opt all of these middle-aged men with a woman with a gun, which is very seductive here in the United States. Right now, her being held by the FBI indicates she is likely a Russian spy.
And she is. And she's in jail. And her indictment, all the court filings, you could read them. We've looked at them, and they confirm that. One of the people that she was, involved with here, one of the middle-aged men who was just seduced by her, was this guy, Patrick Byrne. And Patrick Byrne not only fell for her, but he said 2/3 of him, fell for her, and 1/3 of him actually was so suspicious of the crap she was asking him to do, which was to help her set up and blackmail Hillary Clinton and burrow her way into 3 conservative campaigns to choose who would be best for Russia to be the nominee of the Republican Party, that he literally called the FBI himself. He self-reported this. And the FBI turned around and said, keep seeing her. Keep seeing her. We are investigating.
Clear for takeoff. Randy Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandyRhodes.com. All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randy Rhodes Show.
All right, here is the former CEO of Overstock.com, Patrick Byrne. His first stop was at Fox Business, and he was really nervous and shaky, but he tried to lay out what he is thinking is a complicated story, okay? And so the first thing they ask him is, did they push you out at Overstock, all right? But this is just 3 minutes of a long interview that he did. He did like 25 minutes on each network last night, okay? So, and you'll see he gets clearer and clearer as he progresses through the evening. But this was the first stop.
But there's this other issue, and no, I'm not getting chased out. And the board, this is me ejecting, and I have to. I have to, because I've been warned that if I come forward to America, that the apparatus of Washington is going to grind me into a dust. And that's going to happen, and I have to get that away from the company. It's only right. Why is it going to grind me into a dust? I can tell that you caught me off guard last time, David, and I can tell what I said some Sparkies out there, they didn't quite get the joke. When I say that I know about the Russia and Clinton investigation, this is what I mean. because 17 years ago I helped them crack a murder, and they knew me,
FBI.
and I helped them a bit on Wall Street 12 years ago. They knew me, and they called me in 2015, 2016 to assist in something. And I didn't know who the orders came from, but I assisted. It's some very honorable federal agents and very honorable people, but they named some names, and well, they didn't name the names, that's it. I didn't know who it came from. And I took some orders that seemed a little fishy in 2015, 2016. Last summer, watching television, I figured out the name of who sent me the orders, and this has all now been confirmed to me. The name of the man who sent me the orders was a guy named Peter Strzok.
Oh,
Does that
my
mean
goodness.
anything? Got it? Capiche?
Yeah.
So this is going to be quite a whirlwind. And I have to, it's only
That's
right.
huge
I gotta get away
news,
from
Peter.
it.
That hasn't been revealed so far as I know as of yet, but that's
this is it.
Peter
You're the
Strzok.
guy,
So
you're the
are you
show.
working with the Attorney General in his investigation?
Let me be clear. I'm not working with anybody. I want to spend the rest of my life. The last time I talked to federal officers 5 months ago, and I explained everything to them between April 5th and 30th over a course of 7 hours, and then I disappeared. Bill Barr, there's going to be a sculpture of granite of this guy somewhere. I've been sitting on this stuff for 3 years. I couldn't come forward until there was rule of law in this country. I wasn't going to go forward when this guy, Jeff Sessions, Truman said of an opponent, I could carve a better man out of a banana. That's how America should feel about Jeff Sessions. We have rule of law, and I came forward to them in April. I believe what I understand, and I don't want to get in any federal way. I want to disappear, but there are other whistleblowers from within the federal bureaucracy with similar stories. And I can tell you the bottom line, and again, people didn't seem to get it last time. The bottom line is the big cover-up. There was political espionage conducted against Hillary Clinton, Mark Rubio, Cruz, and Donald Trump. And this isn't a theory of mine. This is some political position. I was in the room when it happened. I was part of it. I thought I was doing law enforcement. Sorry.
Okay, so what he's saying without, explaining names and things like that, he was dating Maria Butina in 2015. And he was so creeped out by what she was asking him to do. She wanted access to Marco Rubio's campaign, Ted Cruz's campaign, Donald Trump's campaign. She wanted to blackmail Hillary Clinton. She needed access to banking officials. Her boss was Alexander Torshin, okay? Alexander Torshin has fled. He's back in Russia. There was another guy named Symes, okay, who was telling her what to do. He also fled back to Russia after she was indicted. All right, these guys were controlling her on behalf of the Kremlin. And they wanted a couple things from her. They wanted her to infiltrate conservative campaigns, Marco Rubio's, Ted Cruz's, and Donald Trump's, because in 2015, they were still shopping for a perfect lunatic that they could work with to destroy the United States from within. And Maria Butina was sent through the NRA and had been cultivating relationships in the NRA since 2013, which I showed you. She came here in 2015. Do you remember that video of Maria Butina asking a question of Donald Trump? Did you put that in there? 17, yeah. Okay. No. Oh, okay. This is Maria Butina in 2015. This is pre-Donald Trump's campaign. Okay, he hadn't announced yet. This was something called Freedom Fest. Freedom Fest is a libertarian gathering. What we didn't know about this particular tape, which we've seen before, and you will recognize it when I show it to you, I'll just play you the abbreviated version of it, was that Patrick Byrne, sorry, I know a guy named David Byrne. He actually runs Raw Story. But Patrick Byrne from Overstock actually met Maria Butina this day at Freedom Fest because he's a libertarian-leaning dude. And he was at Freedom Fest. And when she stood up and asked the question about sanctions, Patrick Byrne started talking to her. and they hit it off. So this is the day that they met.
I'm visiting from Russia, so my question...
Putin. Good friend of Obama, Putin. He likes Obama a lot. Go ahead.
If you would be elected as a president, what will be your foreign politics, especially in the relationships with my country? And do you want to continue the politics of sanctions that are damaging of both economy, or you have any other ideas?
Okay. Obama gets along with nobody. The whole world hates us. I know Putin, and I'll tell you what, we get along with Putin. I believe I would get along very nicely with Putin. Okay?
That's the day they met. And Donald Trump hadn't announced for president yet. But Maria Butina was sent to these events to actually vet for Putin, for Russia, the candidates that were running for the nomination for the GOP, because Putin had already decided he hated Hillary Clinton. He hated Barack Obama. Remember, Barack Obama is the person that put sanctions on Russia for the invasion of Crimea in the first place. And Hillary Clinton was having none of it, right? And this whole thing was about sanctions. So the day that Maria Butina showed up at Freedom Fest, it was a day that Donald Trump was on the stage. And she was sent there to ask him the question about sanctions. And he goes, I don't think we need them. It was like bingo, match made in heaven. Putin wants Trump. But what also happened that day was Patrick Byrne fell in love with Maria Butina and started dating her. That was 2015. They dated for about 6 to 9 months. He called the FBI. He self-reported because he believed he had a low-level clearance from the FBI because he had helped on some short selling that was going on Wall Street. And they had given him a low-level security clearance. And so he had to report any advances by a foreign enemy, a foreign spy. So he did. And they told him, keep dating her. Keep dating her.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
You mentioned during the break that you're going to have a rough few months. I'm curious as to why you said that and what you see happening in the next few weeks and months. Do you have legal counsel? What do you think will happen with you and with your story?
Well, this is extraordinarily... Well, who the heck knows? This is quite an ambiguous situation. But the issue is, I realized that these orders I got came from Peter Strzok, and as I put together things, I know much more than I should know, and it's right to keep silent. This country's gone nuts, and especially for the last year, when I've realized what I know, every time I see one of these things, somebody drives 600 miles to gun down 20 strangers in a mall, I guess I feel a bit responsible. So I have to come forward. I went to see my rabbi, and you know who my rabbi is, right? Mm-hmm. Who's my rabbi? Who's my rabbi, David?
Tell us, Patrick.
It's this guy in Omaha, and he said, Patrick, you come forward. He said, you can't let this sit with the feds. Let the feds do their job. You have to come forward to the American people. So I am. I never heard of the guy. I only figured out last summer who had sent me these requests. It was a guy named Peter Strzok, and he was doing it on behalf of 3 officials. I'm just identifying now as X, Y, and Z. They were named to me, and I've identified them to law enforcement. I believe there's a massive federal investigation that is going to turn up that there was political espionage conducted through a number of different venues against Hillary Clinton and against Rubio, Cruz, and Trump. I know for a fact. I know other people who were involved.
So I don't think he understands, or maybe he does, and he's scared to say it because he's on Fox Business. I have no idea. But he repeats in other appearances, because then he goes to Martha McCallum's show, and then he goes to Chris Cuomo's show, and he repeats again that Hillary Clinton was being blackmailed by Russians and that they were also vetting Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump for their preferred, nominee. This is just crazy. He also says that he believes that he was offered $1 billion to shut up about all this.
I have literally been warned that I was warned about 9 months ago, if you come forward Washington, D.C., everybody in Washington, D.C. is going to spend the rest of your life trying to grind you into dust. And I'll tell you something else that'll come up. I believe I was offered $1 billion bribe to keep quiet. So I was, in the sense, so we'll leave that to the federal investigators.
By the
if
way,
you want to know what
Patrick,
my life, if you want to know what my life's going to be, listen to Warren Zevon, Money, Guns, and Lawyers. That's
Lawyers, Guns, and Money. I think he's a little high also. He's got like that white mung in the, no, it's not the sliding jaw. He's got, here, I'll play you another clip. All the 3 shows, he had white mung in the corner of his mouth. You just wanted to, dab him. You just wanted to go like this, like just dab him. But here he is again telling Martha McCallum, who doesn't really want to hear this, that Hillary Clinton was being blackmailed and that Comey knew this. Now, he's taking an adversarial position of Comey in this clip, but obviously there was a counterintelligence investigation that was started in 2015.
In 2015, 2016, they got back in touch with me for the 3rd time. And it was, I was given some fishy orders. And I carried them out thinking in 2015, 2016, thinking I was conducting law enforcement. Let me emphasize, don't say the FBI. The FBI is barely involved in this. It's all the top. The men in black, as I called them, showed up and asked for this 3rd favor. Well, anyway, I'm not going to go into the details right now, but I didn't know who sent the orders, but I did them. They seemed fishy last summer watching television. And here's the punchline. Here's the punchline, people. Last summer watching television and some congressional hearings, I figured out where those orders came from. They gave him a guy named Peter Strzok and Bill Freestyle, Carlin, McCabe, Comey. That was who sent the orders.
Well, you're naming a bunch of FBI people there.
Well, the Peter Strzok, and it has been confirmed to me that my instructions came from Peter Strzok, that the people who carried me the orders were coming taking it on behalf. That's been confirmed.
So you had helped the government a couple of times. They reached out to you. What did they ask you to do?
I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty right now. The nitty-gritty, I can tell you the main event, and I feel terrible. I've been watching for 3 years, and our country's coming apart, and people are killing each other. And I finally went to see Buffett. And Buffett's kind of my rabbi, I call him. And he said, Patrick, you have to come forward. And I said, it's going to make some feds furious at me. Their heads are going to explode. And he said, you let feds do their job. You're a citizen. You got your job. You're coming to the public. Here's what it is. This was all political espionage conducted against Hillary Clinton, Rubio, Cruz, and Trump. This is not a theory of mine, some political theory. I was in the room when it happened, in a way. I mean, not in a way. I was part of it. I didn't know. I knew I had some of the pieces. I thought I had the pieces of something much bigger. Last summer, as stuff bubbled into the news, thanks to good journalists such as yourself, I started realizing I had these very important missing pieces. I actually started trying to help then, but I had to wait until there was a return to rule of law in our country. And I've lived in places where and that took waiting until Bill Barr got installed. And then I don't know the guy, I never shaken his hand or anything, but only then did I trust things enough. And I went to the Department of Justice and started
you told them what you knew. It's my understanding that I should just point this out because some people might be listening and saying, well, how credible is this? And we did some asking around, and we have basically had the indications that that there's every reason to believe that your story is indeed credible. So I'm
not in the convincing business. I'm in the business
I hear you,
the door,
and obviously, but let me go back to the basics, because this is what everybody's saying at home. This is what everyone's saying at home. What did they tell you to do? What did they ask you to do, Patrick?
There was, some of it. involved this young lady, Maria Butina, who came here. So some of it involved her.
Okay.
Some of it involves setting up Hillary Clinton for what looked like law enforcement was actually setting her up to be blackmailed. I helped them set up Hillary Clinton to be blackmailed.
I helped them set up Hillary Clinton to be blackmailed. And he's accusing Peter Strzok of being the one who ordered him to set up Hillary Clinton to be blackmailed. Now, I will tell you what, Alexander Torshin and Maria Butina, they wanted to blackmail Hillary Clinton. The dirt that Natalia Veselnitskaya gave to Trump Jr. was about campaign donations that never happened by a group called the Ziff Brothers.
Clear. This is the Randy Rhodes Show. To speak with Randy, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Was there anything that you witnessed that, or were you ever told to stand down, to back off? Is that what you were referring to a little while ago, or was that something different?
No, in March of 2016, she asked me over to Russia to give a speech. Her goal was to get me to Moscow to give a talk at the central bank on Bitcoin and liberalism, and then to take me to a resort in the Altai Mountains that was going to be shut down for 3 days so that 40 to 45 people would get together from the oligarchs and the governments, and they're liberals, and we're going to spend 3 days talking about liberalism. And
God.
Anyway, this was the offer, and she had been sent by them to get me to come back and do this.
Yeah.
When she asked me in March to come over again, she was saying, speak in St. Petersburg on blockchain, and I think that we can change the world and eliminate poverty and stuff with blockchain. Come speak. Putin is going to be there. It's been arranged. You're going to have 60 minutes alone with Putin, and this will be great. At that point, I was told, break up with her and get her out of your life. And I worked on something else involving corruption of a federal official.
Okay.
Okay.
No, go ahead. When
that matter involving the corruption of a federal official was complete, it ended in an odd way that sounded fishy. It ended in an odd way that was very fishy. And again, the details are all in the Department of Justice, and but it was involved in a corruption of a federal official, and it ended in a way that smelled like skunk. At which point, when they came back around July 1st of 2016, which is to say a few weeks before the Republican convention, but about the time that Trump became the
nominee,
presumptive nominee, not nominee, but they came back and said, boy, did we make a mistake. Russia. We need to do it. And I want to be clear, they said this. They said the United States never, ever asked this of somebody. Never asked a citizen to conduct a romantic relationship in order to get information. This is such a national security emergency. We need to ask you to do this if you're willing. And the orders come from X, Y, and Z. We want to be clear, Patrick. You are absolutely in your rights to refuse this. You have no obligation to. We never, in all our careers, we've never heard of an American citizen being asked to sleep with someone in order to get information and such. I want to be clear about something. And so then I conducted, for the following 7 months, to all intents and purposes, conducted another romance. That entire time I was lying to the federal government. I put on a show. I was flying her, whining and dining her. That second time I spent time with her, I created the impression deliberately that I was complying with the request and being romantic. What I was actually doing, and she has confirmed this, I understand, from a prison cell. She has no... she could have every right to hate me. I understand she's confirmed to journalists. I was a total gentleman. Anyone observing and surveilling would have thought that we were deeply in love. I never laid a finger on her because I knew it would disgrace our country and it would disgrace Maria. In that entire period that I was being instructed to romance her, I created the impression, but it was all a lie. And I did that, and at the same time, I set up X, Y, and Z for some felony charges.
Wow. It's quite a story. It's just an amazing story. And obviously, the thing that is valuable about what he said there is not that, he obviously he loves her. I mean, he's still, but the thing that's really important in that clip is that she was trying to get him to come back to Russia, that she was promising him meetings with oligarchs and the central bank. Now, what was interesting about the central bank outreach by Maria Butina to get, lots of Americans, businessmen, NRA, and she was able to get them all to come to Russia. And obviously the NRA took, money. They gave Donald Trump $30 million, the NRA did, $30 million. And Maria Butina was infiltrated into the NRA, okay? And the reason why Patrick starts crying and in the middle of one of his, because he realizes that the NRA is the impediment to ending gun violence in this country. And when he hears about people driving 600 miles to, shoot up El Paso Walmarts, he feels responsible, blah, blah, blah. But in this weird way, he's telling you everything, that the Russians wanted to hook up central bankers in Russia with him and using Maria Butina to do it so that he could be bribed, he could be paid in order to help blackmail Hillary Clinton. This was the dirt that Natalia Veselnitskaya eventually produced at the Trump Tower meeting. And what was it? It was information that was wrong. It was erroneous, that said that Hillary Clinton's campaign had taken money from Russians, that she had taken money from the Ziff brothers and the Kremlin, and Vladimir Putin was lying and saying that Hillary Clinton had taken $400 million from Bill Browder and Prevezon. Remember that whole case with Natalia Veselnitskaya? It's all the same thing. It was all to set up Hillary Clinton as she was the one that was on the take. She was the dirty one. She was the one taking Russian money. And they used him to help blackmail Hillary Clinton. The other advances to the other three campaigns was so that the Russians could shop for the best candidate for them to defeat Hillary Clinton, because they needed a patsy. They needed somebody who was going to help them destroy this country from the inside. And they settled on Donald Trump. That is what's in his story. That is what he is saying. And he thinks that, the counterintelligence investigations that were going on in 2015 into the Russians had nothing to do with Donald Trump. Remember, no one was looking at Donald Trump. No one, until Donald Trump became president. And Donald Trump decided to fire James Comey because Donald Trump was read in, and Donald Trump knew that James Comey could prove that Russia had done all this interference in our elections, because the counterintelligence investigation was looking at all these, this Russian spy, Maria Butina. They were looking at Natalia Veselnitskaya. They were looking at all of the contacts. They were looking at George Papadopoulos. They were looking at Michael Flynn. They had intercepted phone calls at that point. Okay, they knew all this. But it wasn't about Donald Trump specifically until Donald Trump fired James Comey and went on Lester Holt and said that he fired Comey because of this Russia thing. Nobody was looking at Donald Trump specifically. They were looking at Russia. They were looking at operatives. They were looking at Putin. They were looking at Natalia Veselnitskaya. They were looking at Alexander Torshin. They were looking at Dmitry Simes. They were looking at, there was a whole bunch of Russian, people that were active and infiltrating the NRA, infiltrating Bolton. Had been brought over to Russia. Flynn had been brought over to Russia. Now we find out Flynn actually met with Vladimir Putin. Jr. had met with Maria Butina. Donald Trump met Maria Butina. But nobody was looking at Donald Trump until Donald Trump fired James Comey. And that's when a special counsel was appointed. That's when we got Bob Mueller. And if you read Volume 1, you'll see all the contacts, and you'll see what they were looking at, and you'll see that they concluded that this was going on and that there was intrusion and it was systemic and it was welcomed by Donald Trump. So these interviews last night, and then he was on Chris Cuomo too, and he was saying the same thing. I helped blackmail Hillary Clinton, but they also were. See, he thinks the FBI was conducting political espionage. No, what the FBI was doing was investigating Russian interference in our election and Russian shopping for the perfect GOP candidate, infiltrating organizations that had a natural association with the GOP, like the NRA. That's what they were doing. It was a counterintelligence investigation. His problem is he fell in love with Maria Butina. She got popped, and now she's in freaking prison for being a Russian spy. But he's in love with her, and he thinks that she's a genius, and she should be the next president of Russia. But while he's saying this and professing his undying love for this Russian spy, he's also admitting that he helped blackmail Hillary Clinton. Now, what really happened was a multi-pronged attack on Hillary. It wasn't just the Russians. It wasn't just the hacking. It wasn't just the dissemination of the emails. It wasn't just Russia interfering in that way. It was also the New York field office of the FBI, who, in the end, closed the Hillary Clinton email investigation. The New York field office took Anthony Weiner's computer because he was texting 15-year-olds, sat on it for a month, and then released it to James Comey 11 days before the election, and he had to stand up and reopen the Hillary Clinton investigation. Remember that? So, trust me, they weren't looking to hurt her. They weren't looking to help her, is what I'm saying.